Okay, so right now we're going to go through the instructions for the midterm. Um, I call it the midterm reflection exercise. So these are the questions that you're going to be dealing with. So there are three questions. So what you're going to be doing is when you do the questions, you're going to name the file, your name, midterm assignment, plus your CRN number. In your case, it will be 10559. Okay. So the questions are going to be looking at different aspects or areas of the course itself, some of the chapters that we've looked at, and is going to ask you to reflect on your experiences with them. So there's some easy questions to start with. List the 5 stages of group development and briefly describe your experiences with each stage. So you'd realize you're identifying some content, but then you're going to have to be adding your own experiences with each of it, so that it's forcing you to reflect on the process of what you've been currently utilizing when you engage in group activities. So remember, it's forming, storming, norming, and so on. You all remember all of that, right? Now, it's not a test. So what you can go to text and pull all the information that you need, or even the presentations that are loaded for those chapters. You can go look at them again to get the information that you need, but it's going to focus its attention on how you have experienced each of these stages of development, whether or not you've been able to identify and recognize the processes that you went through in the past. So part B of that, now that's 10 marks. So because there are 5 stages, we're looking at 2 marks per discussion there. All right. Part B for 5 marks, outline what you've done in the past to deal with group issues and conflict and compare them to the recommendations from the text in dealing with group conflict and what you might do differently in the future. So you're going to be comparing what you currently do to what you did in the past to what you might do moving forward based upon what the text is telling you about trying to deal with conflict. So far, so good. Everybody understands this question? It's fairly straightforward.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right. So the second question is going to take you to another chapter in which in the main textbook, that's the Exploring Leadership text, um, and that is the text about the ethical leadership principles. So, question reason in your Exploring Leadership, they propose 8 assumptions about ethical leadership that are central themes in the study and practice of ethical leadership. Explain what is ethical leadership. So that's straight out of the textbook. You can get that and kind of regurgitate it. If you can add your own interpretation, then it's going to be good. Reflect on any 3 of these assumptions and give your thoughts as to their relevance to your concept of leadership in today's world. Support your response with current examples of leadership behaviors around us today as 8 marks. So you're looking at 3 of the 8 assumptions, any 3, and you're going to be looking at the behaviors. Um, you're going to be looking at the reflecting on its relative importance in the development of ethical leadership and reflecting on what you see leadership around us on an everyday basis or in our environment, political or otherwise, and how it impacts upon that. So it's again reflection about it. So far, so good. Everybody gets that one. You all remember these 8 assumptions? No?
No,
No, you don't?
no, sir. I'm being honest.
All right. So this comes from the chapter with moral and ethical leadership. Courage. I think the name of the chapter is Moral Courage. And let's look at it here. This document will tell us. That would have been the chapter on integrity and moral purpose, chapter 6. And the chapter right after that, teams and groups, that's what you're going to be, these 2 chapters are going to be important to look at. So those are the 2 chapters that you're going to be focusing your attention on, chapter 6 and 7. Your this might be a bit small, but all right. So chapter 6 on integrity and moral purpose, and chapter 7 teams and groups. This was the two chapters that we're going to be basing the whole assessment out of. So if you want, you could focus your attention on the main text and look at those two chapters before you start doing that. So that's what question 2 pulls out from. That makes sense? Now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, now chapter 3 then goes on to looking at the um, well, let's look at the question. Think of an ethical dilemma you have faced or somehow were involved with. Work through the dilemma using the ethical decision-making model identified by Kidder in chapter 6 of the Exploring Leadership by Kumais, Lucas, and Mahon. All right, now the question, this is the primary question here. All right, and it's 40 marks. So you realize that this is where you need to put in the bulk of the work. Use the following rubric to guide your answers. So it starts with you telling us what is an ethical dilemma for 2 marks. List and describe the 4 ethical dilemma types or paradigms that was identified in the textbook by Kidder. Describe the 3 ethical decision-making models, 6 marks. So you're seeing that there. Identify and adequately describe your personal dilemma, 6 marks for that. Analyze how you resolve your dilemma in light of the principles discussed above, 2 marks. Would you modify your decision in light of the information that you know have, and why, 4 marks. You would need to use citation for this, so there are 2 marks for that, and then there's overall use of language and organization of paper. So it's a paper that you're submitting, so you might have to put in a table of contents, a cover page, page numbers, table of content, cover page. You'd have to put your name and whatnot, a title page, I should say, not a cover page, but a title page, and format it according to APA standards for academic papers. So 10 marks will be assigned for the way in which you're doing out of the 40, but 30 marks is going to be for this stuff here. So if you go back to question 2, what are the 4 ethical dilemmas or types or paradigms? You all remember them? Who's the people who did that chapter? Let me just bring that up. So that chapter was Daniel, Marcus, and Miller. Any of them here? All right, so if you don't remember, then obviously you have to review the chapter, but I'll let you know. It was the 4 dilemma types that we face. Remember, a dilemma is not a situation where you're dealing with something that is right and wrong. What you're looking at is 2 rights. So what you have is an ethical dilemma between 2 competing correct responses. So right versus right situations. Those are the most problematic dilemmas that ethical leaders face. So the paradigms that they're talking about here is short-term versus long-term, individual versus community.
Truth versus loyalty.
Truth versus loyalty, and one other. There are 4.
Justice versus mercy.
Justice versus mercy. Very good. Thank you very much. Who's that? Can't see the name.
Karishma.
Karishma? Maharaj?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. And what are the 3 decision-making models from Kidder? Now, Kidder's model and not the other models. There are other models for making decisions. So the Kidder model identifies 3 methodologies for making decisions. And the 3 models are ends-based thinking, care-based thinking, and rules-based thinking. Do they sound familiar, guys?
So you can just repeat it.
Ends-based thinking, rules-based thinking, and care-based thinking. So you make a decision based upon one of those three or combination of them. So rules-based thinking is the thinking that if this is the rule, then this is what I follow. All right. Care-based thinking means that you're taking into consideration the players in the situation that you're looking at, and you are giving precedence to being empathetic towards the individuals or towards people in the organization or the decisions that you're making. And then, of course, um, care base, rules base, ends base. Ends base would be what will give the best outcome. Ends base, what will be the best outcome. So you have to review those in light of a dilemma that you're facing. So the first thing you're doing is ready, kind of laying down the theory. Questions 1, 2, and 3 kind of lays down the theory and make sure that you describe and understand them. Now, what you have to look at is in question 4 is describing your personal dilemma. Now, you have to identify where in your life you've experienced a dilemma where you were facing a decision between two things that were competing with each other. And that is probably going to be the most amount of reflection that you're going to have to face, because you're going to have to find something that's going to give you that that type of decision-making problem that you're going to be facing. So question at hand would be to ask the question, can you all identify dilemmas that you've faced in the past? So this is what you have to do, right? You have to be looking at something from your past, and you're looking at how you treated with it then, and then comparing the theory now and what it says about how we should go about doing things, and looking at if a decision that I made back then, would I change that decision now, knowing now what I do? So you're analyzing your own behavior from a past event. And that requires, well, it's part of the critical thinking element. Now that you have this information about ethical dilemmas and ethical dilemma models and so on. So you have to kind of identify and line up what type of dilemma was it that you faced. Was it a short term versus long term? Was it a group versus individual? Was it, which ones are the others again?
Possessive.
What are the others?
Justice versus mercy.
Justice versus mercy.
And truth versus loyalty.
Truth versus loyalty. So you have to start thinking about dilemmas in which you may have faced, and then start to analyze it in relation to that particular issue. I know that might give you some guys some challenges, but it's the nature of what the thing is. Now, I expect that the deadline on it, on the system, is January 20th, I believe. But try and see if you can get that rolled out, because you have that to write up, plus your self-analysis to write up. You have to do your leadership plan and expectations, reflections. Now you could really start. Well, some people I know may have finished their self-analysis by now, but technically you really should be doing it as we've finished the entire finished the entire content for the class. So you could kind of tighten up and wrap up those things and start submitting those documents. All right. All right. Any questions, clarification people need?
No, all good.
Benny understands everything? All right. I'm going to stop the recording.